Okay, shout outs for this video go to Trevor Rodway, Love Minis, Basic Miniature Painting and Horlicks. Thanks for your comments, guys.
Mind the gap.
Welcome aboard, commuters, and welcome to this part 3 of the Harley-Davidson. We're still working on pack 1 because pack 1 consists of 1, 2, 3 stages. I may just do something with that light because we are going to be dealing with shiny parts. So what we've done now, I've got a confession to make. I have lost a little bit of passion about this, and I did actually make a video this morning. When I say this morning, I mean obviously this is going out on air Sunday. The video was obviously made Saturday, and basically I was looking at this as, oh, here's some parts, do nothing, and it really kind of lost the passion for it. And I don't want to give this up because it's an absolutely fantastic thing. And a couple of things happened. You know, I was at work, and I just suddenly realised, wake up, Penny. You know, you need to make the passion. The passion is there. You're just not finding it. So when I say I don't have the passion, it's not because of the build, which I thought it was. It's actually me. So with your permission, I am going to go through quickly go through issues 1 and 2 again. Let's kind of redo them, and then we'll move on to stage 3, and hopefully then you will all be on tender hooks waiting for the next issue, which I am going to confess I have already received. As you know, I'm releasing this fortnightly, even though it's a monthly part work. And the reason for that is sometimes you only get 3 parts, sometimes you only get 4. If I released 1 a week, by the end of the month I'd then have, sorry, there's nothing for you this week. So I'm just going to let it get ahead by doing fortnightly issues, and then by the time we get to about issue 25 I should have enough backlogged to be able to push 1 video out a week. So what we'll do is we'll move on to, I mean obviously I don't need to show you this because you've already seen it. I believe you've already seen it. So the parts, we get 2 parts with issue 1, and let me just get them out again. We get the front tyre, and we get the right hand half of the fuel tank. Now I sometimes struggle with my right and my left, but that's the right hand side of the fuel tank. Now, why are these interesting? What I've done is I've done a quick bit of pre-research, nothing too major, and where possible I'm going to use my own experiences, and I'm going to try and find something about most of the major components. Obviously I'm not going to sit there and talk about screws, but obviously that we've got a really good component here, the tyre. And what I've actually come up for you here is, why is the front tyre smaller than the rear tyre? Now the answer to that is different from bike to bike. Now we are looking at a cruiser here. A cruiser differs quite drastically from other kinds of bikes. They tend to be more torquey, more powerful, but don't necessarily have the high-end top speed, whereas motorbikes, they tend to be a lot more short sharp speed. They want to reach that top speed really quickly, and they're gone. Cruisers, they are quite literally, as they say, they want to cruise around. I have a little saying, enjoy the ride, not the destination. So it's all about the ride, not the destination. So why is the tyre smaller? Quite simply because it doesn't need to be the same size as the rear tyre. Now a lot of the weight of a bike is on the rear tyre. It's a rear wheel drive, so you need more traction with the ground. The front tyre is more about the control, and you also note that they're rounded, whereas a car tyre tends to be flat. Now it probably sounds obvious, but obviously as it's going to go around the corner, you still need that control. I will, in a later video, I'll explain to you a lovely terminology that we have called a pussy strip, but that will come much later, and I'm going to let you hang on to that thought for a while. So I've actually found something on Yahoo, and I will read it word for word because I'm just not very good at rewording things. And it says, I would have to say that it was about the style of the bike, which is basically what I've just said. My HD FLT had 16-inch rims front and back, with both tyres being the same width. Old Indians and Harley-Davidson had 18-inch front and back with the same width. HD FXs had 16 on the back and 19 in the front, and the front was skinnier. Some bikes have 16 on the back, 21 in front. Now I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you here, but it's just saying that you know, it's very different from bike to bike. Wider tyres are more stable on the straights, so for example cars are quite stable on a straight, and they have skinnier tyres and more suited for the twisties. So you'll notice that racing bikes tend to have skinnier tyres. Wider tyres have a larger contact patch, therefore they have better traction. So that's the tyre, which obviously you know, obviously we would like to be building stuff, but unfortunately we're not. So we just admire the parts, and I'm actually gonna just skip to, no I'm not, what I'm gonna do, if you don't mind, I'm gonna just pop this to one side. The reason being is it's probably going to be easier to talk about this when we talk about part 3. It will become clear why later. So with part 2, I'm not going to talk about the screws and the number plate, because they're kind of, screws obviously hold the bike together, and the number plate, they just tend to be more of a legal requirement. Obviously you need some kind of identifier. But the two parts I will look at: the front fender and the right half of the cylinder. Sorry, the right half of the front cylinder. Now remember, this is a V-twin, so there's going to be 4 pieces of this. We've got the right half, the left half, and then we'll have the left and the right halves of the rear cylinder. And it's going to go in that way, and it's basically going to sit like that. That's why now it's called a V, because these are arranged in a V shape, and it's called a twin because there's 2 of them. Obviously when you kind of look at it like that, it's obvious. So the question that I've kind of brought up, I mean, obviously if you want to leave questions in the comments, I will certainly answer them in the next video. So V-twin, also called a V2, is a 2-cylinder, that's 1 cylinder, 2-cylinder internal combustion engine where the cylinders are arranged in a V configuration. Although widely associated with motorcycles, V-twin engines are also produced for the power equipment industry and are often found in riding lawnmowers, small tractors and electric generators. I would imagine that the reason for that is that you fit it into a smaller space. If you had 2 side by side, it's going to take up more room. So I apologise about the camera, as opposed to having that takes up a little bit less space. Now these can be basically anything from 1 degree to 180 degrees. So I may have just read that wrong. Less than 180 degrees. So that would be classed as a V-twin. Although an angle that approaches 0 obviously isn't going to be practical, and they do actually vary. You've got 18-degree angle, which is what, something like that, which you'll find in a matchless silver arrow, right up to 170 degrees for I can't even read that, a Zundap KS750. And you'll find a 1934 Moto Guzzi has 120 degrees. typically a Harley-Davidson would have a 45-degree angle, which is about that, which looks like that's how it's going to go in. The next part we have is the front fender. Now some of you will be going, what's a fender? A fender is the American English term for the part of the bike that frames the wheel well. So obviously you'll have, where's that tyre gone? I may have this the wrong way round. See if I can figure it out. I think it's going to go that way. So that's basically what it's going to look like just with those parts when it's finished. And all it does is, again, it may not sound as important as it actually is, but it's just going to prevent sand, mud, rocks, anything like that from the road being thrown into the air. Imagine you're riding around at, what should we say, let's say 70 miles an hour, because that's the legal speed limit in the UK, and you've got a piece of debris flying at you, maybe a stone chip in the road, and that's going to fly up at, I don't know, 10 miles an hour. That's going to hit you in the face at 80 miles an hour, because obviously you're travelling that way at 70 and you've got the stone. This will just protect that, and that's basically what the fender does. So let's move on to part 3, which is why we're all here, and we have 3 major components. We're going to have a couple of screws. Now I haven't opened the screw pack because they are small parts, and we don't know how long we're going to have them in the packs for, and obviously I don't want to lose them, but to be honest with you, it is going to be massive. So excuse me, screws, you know, I mean, if you want to have a look at screws I would show you, but I suspect most of you know what the screw looks like. The next part I've got is the mirror, and you can see my webcam in the mirror. That's how good it is. I'm just going to give, I've got a bit of OCD, so there's a bit of a smudge on that, so I have to stop everything. Now, one thing I've noticed with the mirror is it has these words on them. I can't get it into focus, I do apologize. Oh, there we are. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have never seen that in any English motorbikes, but I've seen it a lot in, say, the movies, on cars. Is that perhaps a legal requirement in the US? If there's anybody watching from the US that can answer that. I'm assuming that this is going to be a US spec bike. Now obviously, me being a cruiser rider, the first thing I would do is modify these, so these might actually be one of the first things. If I bought this bike, I would probably remove these and put something different on, something a little bit more me, something that reflects me. This is the beauty of the Harley-Davidson. There is one set, there we are, we're actually on that page. No two alike. And never has true a word been said about that, because people will drill holes in it, they'll put different panniers on, they'll add flags, they'll change the mirrors, they'll change the indicators, all sorts they'll do to it. And that's just basically to make the bike theirs. Now I am in the process of trying to get some pictures for you. Obviously, if there's anybody out there that's never seen a Harley, this is going to be the first one you see. So I'd like to show bikes, and the summer has now definitely hit the UK. As you can tell from my driver arms, I have this arm that sticks out the window, it's very brown, and this one that sits inside the cab, which is currently very white. So that's our UK summer has arrived. And another reason why I need to get out on the bike, so I can get the tan on both arms. Sorry, I've forgotten where I am. Now this is why I wanted to leave this part till issue 3, because we get the left hand side now. Now you can place these together, and in fact it may not necessarily be I cannot see that it's a bad idea. These are going to go together. Now, one of the things I love about the Harley is they have an awful lot on the fuel tank. From the part works point of view, it's made it a lot easier because you can put this ugly line down the middle where you've got two halves. Now I'll show you a little picture of the magazine. They do put an awful lot of stuff down the middle. You've got the speedo. All the bikes that I've ridden, they've usually had all the instruments on the handlebars, but Harleys tend to do it slightly differently. But as you can see, this is a massive fuel tank, even in model kit. My fuel tank on my last bike would probably be about that big in scale form. However, the main reason for that is, let me just check the facts. I do apologise. I like to try and sound like I know everything. I've already pre-checked it and everything, and that maybe I'm talking from personal experience, but the sad truth is that most of my knowledge comes from what's written down. So it's a V-twin 4-stroke engine with a I call it a 1.3 capacity, or 1.3 litre engine, although in bike terms it's more of a 1300, and pretty much means the same thing. And I know it's in here somewhere, the capacity of the fuel tank. Do you know what, now I can't find it. Oh, fuel tank is a 38 litre capacity, which is, comparing that to my last bike, is about 10 litres more. And you usually find that the larger the bike, the larger the fuel tank, and you'll probably get approximately 160 miles. That's about normal for a bike. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how you ride it. So obviously, because the larger bikes have lower fuel economy, because they're larger, they've got more weight to pull, so they tend to get a little bit less MPG, so they'll have the bigger fuel tank. But when I've always ridden around in group riding, we've all been sort of low tank roughly the same time. What we tend to do, or most of the groups that I've been in, we know we'll get roughly 150, 160 miles out of a tank. So usually what we do is every time we fill up, we reset our trip counter. Once we hit about 100 miles, we're starting to look for a petrol station. Usually by the time we've done 100 miles at sort of 50 to 60 mile an hour average, you're probably looking to have a little bit of a rest anyway. Although some of these sports bike riders probably need a rest earlier on, because I can't see how those seats are comfortable. So all of the parts in pack 1, all we do with them, oh sorry, do you know, I do apologise, I forgot to look at the last bit, which is the air filter. Now this is the air filter cover, which I do really like. It's got some really nice detailing on there. If I can just get it into focus, 8 cubic inches. I don't know if that's coming in. There we go. I do apologise, that's the best I can do. So what does the air filter do? As the name suggests, it filters the air. So why does it need to do that? Because it's I'm just going to double check some facts as well. I believe that this is an air cooled, yes, this particular model Harley-Davidson is an air cooled bike. So obviously the air that comes in is a lot more important, but the air in this particular case, it's mixed with the fuel. Believe it or not, petrol on its own isn't actually flammable. What's flammable is the vapors that come off when they mix with the air. Now obviously if you're running fuel vapors through your engine mixed with air, and that air has particles in it, it's going to damage all the inside of the bike. So basically the air filter just filters out any little bits of debris. So as a result, you need a cover, because obviously as it's trapping that dirt, you're going to get all, obviously the build up. So you need a cover that you can always find the air filter usually on one of the sides. I've always noticed it tend to be on the right. having a look at this one, it looks like it is on the right. I don't know if it's designed to be on the right, but again, that's personal experience. So you need a cover that you can have easy access to. Changing the air filter is quite literally a 5-10 minute job, and the maintenance of it is the same. Quite often what I would do is just pull my air filter out, give it a little bit of a brush. You can get specialist cleaners like solvents, and obviously you don't want to be stripping the whole engine apart just to get to it. So it's a nice simple job. Most of the air filters that I've had have been pleated. They're like pieces of paper that they kind of concertina their way through, but you can get sponges. The sponges tend to be a little bit cheaper. They don't tend to be quite so long lasting, but they do have the advantage that you can just rinse them. And I've just found out you can get pleated cotton filters, which I don't actually know anything about. So that is the parts for the first pack. That's the first pack complete. I am excited about the second pack because there isn't an awful lot to actually do, but there's lots of different parts. So now I've actually had these in the box for a few weeks now, and I've noticed there's been a few scuffs and marks. I've actually had these parts replaced. These are the original parts that came. It's a long story as to why, so it doesn't really matter so much about these. But one thing I would recommend, it's not very expensive, kitchen roll, and I would say one piece. So let's start with the small one. So we'll just give that a fold. It's a little bit of work, but when you've got a beautiful bike at the end of it, it's worth it. And if you want, you can then write on there air filter, and I'll put a 1 because I know it comes from part 1. And then obviously the next piece, you may need 2 pieces, but that would be my recommendation. There's lots of things around that can just gently scuff it. Even pop them in the box next to each other, the box accidentally gets moved, now you've got a scratch. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next week. You take care.
So the comments for last week begin with Trevor Rodway. He says that I see another YouTuber is on part 22 of the Harley-Davidson that you are building. Has this part work been issued before? Yes, this actually comes from Model Space. What they seem to do is re-release models. Maybe you've missed the original release, and you can actually get them in pack form. So instead of getting 1 a week from the newsagents or whatever, you actually receive 1 pack a month. You might get 3 issues, you might get 4, and they tend to just sort of space them out so that you can receive it all within 24 months. You can have it on 12 months, but obviously that's more expensive. Love Minis writes, the parts do look great. The pack of black and chrome screws does give hope that soon actual building can be done. Basic miniature painting writes, we all love a Harley, great video mate. Couldn't agree more, we all do love a Harley. And Horlicks writes, this looks great too. The parts look like they are of good quality. So thanks for the comments, guys. I really do appreciate it. Keep the comments coming. I will read them out and deal with them all. Also, are you building this? Whether you're actually behind where I am or you're far ahead, why not send in some photos and I'll get those published in a future video. Okay, guys, so I will see you in 2 weeks. Have a great fortnight. Bye bye.